not being a part, not being a part, not being a part, not being a part, but rather, what I call not being a part, 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 human race is always looking for freedom. Well, not being a part, not being a part, not being a part, not being a part, is always looking for freedom. Well, not being human race, not being a part, 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 is always looking for freedom. Well, rather not being a part, 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 not being a part. Well, the human race, but rather not being a part, not being a part, not being a part, race is always looking for freedom. Well, not being a part, 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 not being a part,
in the long run,
not being a part, not being a part. Well, the human race is not being a part, not being a part, not being a part, not being a part. It's always good for freedom. Well, the human race has always looked for freedom. Well, the human race has always looked for freedom.
in the long run, I
The human
have
race
some faith that
has always looked for freedom.
as a people
Well,
we will
the human race
climb out of it.
has always looked
But
for freedom.
I'm extremely
the human race
upset. What life?
has always looked for freedom. Well,
In the long run,
the human
I
race
have some faith
has always looked for freedom.
as a
Well,
people
the
we will
human race
climb out of it.
has always looked for freedom.
But I'm
Well,
extremely
the human race
upset.
has
What
always
life?
looked for freedom. Well,
In the long
human
run,
race
I have some
has
faith
always looked for freedom. Well,
as a
the human race
climb
has
out of it.
always looked for freedom.
But
Well,
I'm
the
accepting
human
the
race
sign of the dotted line. Upset.
has
It's
always
somewhat
looked
like
for freedom.
effectively
Well,
guarantees
the
in
human
the long
race
run I have,
for the foreseeable
I
future.
has
some
always
faith
looked for freedom. Well,
as a
the human race has
climb
always
out.
looked for freedom. Well,
But I'm
the human
extremely
race
accepting the sign
has
of
always looked for
what
freedom.
life is
Well,
something that
the human race
in the long run I have
has always
some
looked for freedom. Well,
we have
the
accepted
human
the
race
sign of the dotted line.
has always
Some
looked
climb
for
out.
freedom. Well,
But I'm
the human race
extremely
For the foreseeable future.
has always looked for
we
freedom.
have accepted
Well,
the sign of the
the
dotted
human
line.
race
It is something that
has always
effectively
looked for freedom.
guarantees these
Well,
records.
the human race
Accepted the sign of the dotted line.
well,
It is
the
something
human race
effectively guarantees
has
these
always looked
records.
for freedom. Well, the human race
Accepted the sign of the dotted
has
line.
always looked for
It is
freedom.
something
Well, the
effectively
human race
guarantees these records.
has always looked for freedom. Well,
Accepted
the
the sign
human
of the
race
dotted line. It is
has
something
always
that
looked for freedom.
effectively
Well,
guarantees these
the
records.
human race
For the foreseeable future.
has always looked for
Accepted
freedom.
the sign of the
Well,
dotted line.
the human
It is
race
something that effectively guarantees these records.
For the
For the
foreseeable
long run, I have accepted the sign of the dotted line. It is something that effectively guarantees the climb out of the ocean.
For the foreseeable
But I'm extremely accepting the sign of the dotted line. It is something that effectively guarantees the long run. Accepted the sign of the dotted line. It is something that climb out effectively guarantees that I'm extremely accepting the sign of the dotted line. It is something in the long run effectively guarantees something. Accepted the sign of the dotted line. Climb out. It is something that I guarantees accepted the sign of the long run. It is something effectively guarantees these records.
for the foreseeable future.
Accepted the sign of the dotted line. But I'm something effectively guarantees these records. The long accepted the sign of the dotted line. Something.
Betrayal.
Something. Betrayal. Effectively guarantees these records. So accepted the sign of the dotted line.
Betrayal of promise.
Something effectively guarantees these records. So long run. Betrayal of sign of the dotted line. Something effectively guarantees
So much
these
power.
records.
Betrayal of
But I'm
betrayal of promise.
extremely
Betrayal
accepted the sign of
early
the ideals. Something
has so much
effectively guarantees
betrayal of promise.
accepted the sign of the
Has so much color.
something
Betrayal.
effectively
Betrayal of
guarantees
promise.
that I'm extremely ideals.
Has so much
Sign of
betrayal.
some long run effectively guarantees
Has so much color.
accepted the sign of trail promise. Something that I effectively guarantees
Has so much color. Betrayal. Betrayal of
accepted the sign of the long run. I accepted the sign of the
Has so much color.
to something
As a people, we
effect-
will
climb
betrayal.
out.
Betrayal of promise. Betrayal of early ideals. Has so much color. Betrayal. Betrayal of promise. Betrayal of early ideals.
In the long run, I
Has so much color.
we have accepted the sign of the dotted line.
Betrayal.
To
Betrayal
some-
of promise. Betrayal of earlier. In the long run, I have something. But I'm extremely
Results of the absolute thing.
upset.
So now, that's something else.
In the long
I've
run,
been a part of the past.
So much color. Guaranteed. I'm trail of promise. Trail of sign of so much something in the long run. Trail of promise. Sign of trail. Something trail that I'm guaranteed early ideas for the foreseeable. So much color. Except the trail. Sign of the long run. Trail of promise. Something.
Well, the human race has always looked for freedom. Well, the human race has always looked for freedom. Well, the human race.
Thanks for coming out, everyone. We got Chris Williams here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this has been a great show. I guess the first question I wanted to ask is, it seems like you do a lot of like multidisciplinary work, and that you've been incorporating electronics into a lot of your pieces, but also working with like artists and more like installation work.
Sure.
I was reading online about that, some interviews, and yeah, what's that process like?
Yeah, I started mainly as a trumpet player, and in the last maybe, I want to say 6 or 7 years, after spending some time at Cal Arts out in Los Angeles, I was just spending a lot more time with like artists outside of the music world, and realized that they shouldn't really be separated. You know, like if you have something to say, it's more about making sure that you could say it in the medium that best serves it. So I stopped thinking so like particularly about my music practice versus any other type of practice, and just started really trying to focus on what the idea needed to be able to like be communicated as clearly as possible.
Yeah.
And I think honestly, from my just growing up as a musician and playing in bands and things like that, it's just a collaborative experience.
Yeah.
And I love collaborating with people. It's kind of why I'm in this in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Just ways to spend time with people, play, hang out, drink, all like literally all of it. I feel like is the rehearsal, is the vibe, is the energy. So
yeah, no, totally. I definitely feel that too. Do you feel like you've been able to convey like different ideas like working than you've been able to convey just through music and sound?
I think for a second when I started kind of expanding my my practice, I did think that I could convey different ideas. But lately I've kind of realized, maybe this is contradictory to what I was saying, but I really feel like I kind of came back around and have been enjoying just the expansion of sound and just what sound can incorporate, and like how much you can communicate just sitting with your instrument or with some pedals, or with, I have my SP with some samples. Like that feels expansive in itself. So there are some things that I think I love, just to take the opportunity to collaborate with a dancer or collaborate with like a theater maker. And it's not necessarily because it always needs to be in that situation, but it's just another opportunity to like bring my friends in and kind of like get somebody else paid too, or all about that, like just working with people.
Totally.
Yeah.
And you said so like being in California and LA at Cal Arts, that's when you started to meet other artists?
Yeah, I didn't really grow up with a lot of artists other than just other musicians. So I just, I grew up enjoying watching film and just getting into like comic books and just seeing art in general, but not really collaborating with anybody. CalArts was like the first opportunity that I had to just like sit down with somebody, go to their class, like really say what are you thinking about? Like what are you doing? Why are you doing this? You know, why are you approaching it like this? And then through that, I just started to look at myself and see what I was approaching.
Yeah. Do you feel like it changed your approach?
Absolutely, kind of
Yeah.
night and day.
Like how so?
I just had a different default. You know, default just expanded. You know, I stopped thinking, oh, I have an idea. How can I convey it directly through the trumpet? I was thinking about, all right, I have an idea. Like, who do I have around me that has some time that I can work with, or what's the energy in the room that I'm in right now, and how can I put that towards this idea? Kind of keeping that spirit also of improvisation just at the forefront, not getting too hung up in who's in town or who is available for this, or just really, you know, I've never had like a, since CalArts, I haven't had like a band. I've had some duos, as you saw with Trae. And I love duos for that because they can be that kind of casual approach, but really just my approach is just who's sitting in front of me and what can we make, and are we aligned, and where are we aligned? Where do we intersect?
Yeah.
And, you know, what can we learn from each other?
Totally. So have you and Trae been doing a lot of duo work for the last
No, this is 3.
third?
This is big 3.
Oh wow, okay.
This is the third gig.
Yeah.
This is the first time we left town.
Yeah.
We're both living in Brooklyn right now, and we kind of just, we had played a few times. I sat in with Blacksmiths once. Trae and I have played in some other kind of ad hoc groups with Luke and Achilles, and it was always like love and energy, and I was just really curious what would happen if it was just us, and what could I bring that felt really different from the other projects that I do, which especially lately have been really heavily electronic with my computer and a lot of like processing of different sounds and even more samples than I have at this point. So I kind of wanted this is my pared down
Yeah. Oh, interesting. Okay.
thing. So
Yeah.
this is actually like as pared down as I go for now. I haven't.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've kind of been rocking the spaceship in some other scenarios.
Oh, do you use trumpet always, or do you ever just do?
It's hard.
electronics?
It's hard for me to leave the trumpet at home.
Yeah.
It's home based still, but the default is now becoming trumpet with effects or trumpet with sampler. But I have a duo with a good friend, Lester St. Louis, who plays the cello, and we have a duo called H by H, which is very like computer focused and kind of working in a more ambient techno realm, you know, all improvised, of course, but still.
Yeah. Do you do like mainly improvised music?
At this point, I do,
Yeah.
you know, not always by choice, but that's just sometimes I feel like New York really lends itself to being somebody that is really excited about improvisation and not caught up in the fact that maybe you don't have enough time to rehearse or you don't have enough time to get together, because people don't always have that time. People are in and out of town, and you can still build. I mean, Trae and I feel like are building a lot of language through these gigs, and we build off the bandstand as well, but it's not necessarily about getting together and rehearsing, you know, a track or a tune or something like that. It's more about what are we kind of accumulating, what's amassing before we get into the space, and like what kind of resonates to the surface when we play.
Yeah. No, totally. I could definitely see that. And you play. I mean, it seems like you collaborate with like yourself and a lot of people who I consider some like my favorite improvisers right now. And how is that? Yeah, do you feel like there's a new energy in it, or like, yeah, I'm trying to think how to word this, but like, do you feel like there's kind of a new wave of improvisation, or it's like continuing this tradition but kind of expanding in new ways? Because it just seems like an exciting time to be an improviser.
Yeah. It's really hard to say. I feel like from the outside and kind of what media likes to tell you, it's kind of, yeah, there's always, or right now is this kind of new wave of, like you're describing, like improvisation or free jazz, or things are kind of coming to the surface and getting more like popular. But it does feel like it's more of the second part of what you're saying, which is just that I'm continuing a tradition of a lot of people living in this New York energy and like feeding off of it and getting to the point where, you know, there's a need to go and share the music outside of New York. So you start to tour. Maybe there's a need to just make some money, so you tour. But yeah, it's hard to say that it's new or that it's special. Like I feel special being a part of it and being in the mix and being able to collaborate and communicate with the people that I am. But every time when you look through the archives that y'all have or any other archive, there's so much. There's always been kind of so much happening, and I just feel like just kind of picking that up and taking it on, you know?
Yeah, definitely. I know that you studied with Benny Maupin, and like, what was that like?
Benny, yeah. Benny is Benny is family.
Yeah.
Benny is absolutely family. When I was at Cal Arts, Benny was there, and he only taught one class. It's just like an ensemble class. Yeah. So I signed up for it with a friend of mine, plays drums. And it was funny because it felt like people didn't really know as much about who Benny was. I was kind of surprised. I thought it would be a little bit more difficult to get in front of him, and he was really chill. And basically the class was, we would sit down, he would like look at us, he would take out all of his horns, and he would just play. Yeah. And we'd play for an hour, and then say, okay, good, and then he'd leave, and and you know, it didn't really get too much from him in that scenario. And then towards the end of the semester, he just, you know, kind of asked me about some dates, and seemed like he wanted to keep playing. So then I started to work with his band outside of the school situation, and that was where I feel like I really learned from him. That was where he started, you know, giving me advice, like kind of mentoring me in a way that felt like I understood how he liked to lead a band, and I understood, you know, the ways in which I maybe wanted to emulate that or maybe didn't want to. Yeah. And just because he was so experienced and kind of straightforward and just forthright with the information, with the really serious knowledge, I was able to make a lot of decisions about how I wanted to move through this music and basically kind of build off of that. And now that I don't live in LA, it's basically I just call him a lot, and he still gives me advice.
That's awesome.
He's great, really.
That's like, it's really special to have this, like, especially like intergenerational relationships.
Yeah, I mean, like you and Ken, seems similar.
Ken's young.
I didn't mean to.
No, exactly. No, I feel that, and it's, for me too, it's been like so important because it feels like you're part of something bigger too, and it's like you learn how you want to structure your life, because there isn't any like blueprint or like anything at all, and so everyone is like finding their way, and to have like people who are more experienced or just different experience is, I feel like, very special.
Yeah, I mean, it is really a different experience, because sometimes you get a lot of these folks that had kind of grew up in a way where they were able to move a certain way because of the economics around the music that are vastly different compared to what we're experiencing. So
Totally.
it's actually interesting sometimes when I get to really spend a lot of time with elders and hear those stories and realize that it's not like that anymore, and that we have to find different answers to a lot of these questions.
Yeah, like of like, you mean just like some practical things too about like?
I mean, practical for sure, but also just how the music is shared. That's a practical question.
Yeah.
In the sense of money exchanging hands, but it's also a very spiritual question of how are you sharing with people, and what are you sharing? So much. There's you guys have this archive of things that maybe Sun Ra didn't want to be shared. Maybe they weren't supposed to get to somebody. And how do we like control that? How do we like understand that for ourselves? How are we taping ourselves? How are we not? How are we making sure the camera's off? You know what I mean?
Definitely.
The surveillance aspect of living in this world is insanely different.
Yeah. That is a very good point. Like there is more of a spotlight and there's less maybe transparency in some ways through things. Do you feel like you have any like more elders that you work with in New York? Less
elders. I would say, I have some people that have just spent a lot more time in New York. She doesn't live in New York, but I kind of got to spend a lot of time with Nicole Mitchell, playing with her group, and that really helped me decide to move to New York, actually. Just spending time with her and seeing, I play with her Black Earth Ensemble, and it's a large group of heavy hitters, and I realized that a lot of them lived in or near or around New York, and if I wanted to kind of move in this way, I needed to be there. And through that, I met Darius Jones, who I wouldn't necessarily consider an elder, especially because I'm on camera, but he's definitely a mentor.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Big
I go
mentors.
to him a lot for advice, and he's very generous.
Yeah.
And straight. Yeah.
Wow, that's great. How long have you been in New York for?
Quick. I moved 2 weeks before the COVID shut down.
Okay.
So
Really?
it's been a little over 4 years.
Yeah.
Moved in February 2020.
Wow.
Yeah. So saw the city shut down, and I felt mixed about it. I mean, I felt like the world was ending again, and it continues to end over and over. So this was one of them. And being in New York for that ending was interesting, and simply focused on the music in a way. I felt like people had slowed down to the point where I was able to connect with a lot of folks.
Yeah.
Folks that maybe would have been on tour or just kind of busy and not necessarily as available, were available. So when I got there, I met Luke Stewart, who, is connected to literally everybody. And Luke was very generous in making sure that I knew a lot of great people, as well as Jamie Branch, who, really set me on a path as like just an example of music making and existing in the world, as well as making space and making community for people. She really exemplified that in a beautiful way. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's like a wonderful group to like just immerse yourself in. Did you like know them beforehand?
It's funny, me and Trae were talking about, we met at the Blue Whale in Los Angeles in like 2018 or 2019 before I moved to New York. Yeah. And Trae was playing in this group of James Brandon Lewis's. So it was JB and Jamie Branch and Luke Stewart. Can't remember who was on guitar. It was maybe Ava, but there's another person, I'm forgetting their name, and Trae was playing drums. And so we all met there, and that was another time where I was like, oh shit, I gotta move to New York. This energy music is, I hadn't experienced it really in Los Angeles, and I knew that was what I wanted.
Yeah.
Even just wanted to be around, whether or not I was playing, I wanted to be able to experience it in the visceral sense. So I needed to move to New York just to be there.
Yeah. Is it what you thought it would be like?
No.
Yeah.
No, not at all.
It's good. It's good to be surprised.
Yeah, it's different. It's always different. And I'm learning that New York in general is always different, and it's always expanding and compressing and changing at the micro level, just by the nature of people. It's such a transient city, and for better or for worse, especially now that I'm in New York and I'm meeting a lot of people that are from New York. I recognize what New York actually is, and then there's like what New York is in the sense of people coming in and out, and it's kind of like, yeah, that's interesting in regards to music as well. So yeah, it's different. There's a lot more at my fingertips than I even knew.
Yeah.
Just to be able to see so much different music.
Yeah. And you feel like too you've connected into like the artist communities as well?
Yeah, absolutely. That's just natural. I feel like New York does a good job of having folks cross paths.
Yeah.
When I was in LA, I was reading a lot about Butch Morris and him collaborating with Senga and Ngudi, and
Yeah.
feeling like, oh, that's natural. That's normal. Why wouldn't they?
Yeah.
And so when I moved to New York and I saw that a lot of people were doing that, it was just it was encouraging to just like keep working in that way. And it's always a matter of, how did we meet? I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
It's always that. How did we meet? I'm not sure.
Yeah. When we at the record store.
At the record store?
Yeah. Remember when you were getting the high tech LP?
You were in the high.
Yeah.
I remember.
Yeah.
You were like, I love this record.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. I was like, yeah. And then I was like, yeah, Chris gotta come to Chicago. I feel like you're a perfect like person for this series.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no,
Really.
it's great. Do you feel like, are you have anything like upcoming that you're excited about, or projects or installation?
It's a good question. A lot of collaborations, some dance things overseas. I told you I'm going to be in Copenhagen for a month.
Oh yeah.
And I'm working with this amazing dancer, Phyllis Akanyi,
Okay.
who is creating a piece for the Royal Danish Theater.
Whoa.
Yeah, Playhouse Theater. I should get
Yeah.
mine. But I'll be there for a month, and I'm looking forward to kind of just building, as it's one of those experiences where I'm one of the 2 musicians of like a 7-person group. So collaborate with dancers and video artists, and,
Oh, wow.
and I kind of love that energy.
Yeah. How did you get connected into that?
I
I guess it's like the same question of how do you meet people. Yeah.
I did another festival
Yeah.
with my good friend Lester St. Louis,
Yeah.
who I'm working with, and we were just at a festival at an after, and I met Phyllis, who's actually an experimental flamenco dancer.
Wow.
Which is the only one I know.
Yeah.
So because of that, I definitely just wanted to know what are you doing, and
Yeah.
I saw them perform, and said I was available for whatever you need.
Yeah.
Let's make it happen.
Yeah. That's great. And trumpet,
Yeah.
I feel like works well with
Yeah, I think there's something there,
filmmaker.
right?
Yeah.
But yeah, in the next year, I have a couple of albums coming out that are finally coming out. Solo recording. It's actually a trio recording, but it's of my music with Kalia Vandiver and Patrick Shiraishi, and then my debut album with Lesser St. Louis. We have this duo that
Wow.
finally some music is going to come out. So
Well,
very
that's
excited
exciting.
about that. So please look into that.
Yeah, everyone stay tuned. That's exciting.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was also like, because I know like the first kind of iteration of this show was going to have like a video element. And I was just curious, like, I was reading too about some other interviews you've had, and you talked a lot about like ancestral like trauma and grief. And I don't know, like, if that was kind of connected to part of what you were gonna present, or like, what does that mean to you?
It
it's
was
an intense question.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, we don't have to like go into it, but just,
Maybe I'll give the
yeah.
But yeah, I was going to work with my partner Laura Sofia Perez, amazing video artist and filmmaker, and mainly to bring some like another iteration of this piece that is focused on my great-grandmother who lives in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I'm actually going to visit her in the next couple of days. She's, I want to say 94. And yeah, it doesn't have a shape. It's something that's more about documentation, archive work, something that I feel like isn't, could always be done more. You could always archive your family more.
Yeah, definitely.
So I wanted to participate in that, make sure that I was doing that for myself. And basically I do a solo performance with that archive work, and however that comes out. Sometimes it's in projection, sometimes it's just in sound. And yeah, it's just, like I said, however it manifests, to make sure that it's like clearly communicated.
Wow. Yeah, that's great. Well, thanks, Chris.
Thank you, Lily.
Yeah. Do you guys have any questions? Any audience questions? Someone got something for Chris?
No pressure.
Yeah. What are your bigger? I'm just gonna repeat it back for the camera here. What are some of your biggest inspirations, like film, book wise, or in general? Music?
There's a film that I kind of think about on repeat, just going through life and making music, called Uncle Boonmi, Who Can Recall His Past Lives, by this great director, Thai director, Apichat Pong Wirastakul. And it's just phenomenal. It's kind of about dream states and realities, alternate realities, but it's just very poetic. And I think about that a lot. It's also a book, so I read the book and get into that as well.
Wow. Okay, I gotta check it out.
Yeah, check
Thank you.
it.
Yeah.
It's hot, so I won't be mad if you don't
Yeah,
have
I'll
questions.
go to. Yeah, no, really appreciate everyone coming out today, and Chris for being here, and
Thank
Trae.
you, Lily.
Yeah, thanks, guys. It was great.
Thank you.